Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye covering the 2014 elections. We're on the campus of the North Central Technical College in Wausau. We're interviewing State Senator Jerry Petrowski of Marathon. He's a Republican seeking re-election in the 29th Senate District. Jerry, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you, Steve.
And a programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Jerry, I'd like to start about asking you about transportation funding, because I know you've been a part of that for as long as you've been in the Capitol. You were in the Assembly before you joined the Senate. This biennium, we borrowed, I checked with the Fiscal Bureau, $991 million. Yet, projected deficit possible, just in the transportation fund, the next biennium, $600, $700 million. Do you think in the next session we're finally going to be able to achieve some way to pay for long-term highway, bridge, and these transportation programs, sir?
Well, I think that's really the goal. Are we going to get there at one time? No, but I think we need to make some effort to get at least partway there. And I think if you understand the whole transportation system, this isn't something that just occurred. This has been going on for a number of years. And really what has happened in the past is the revenue coming into the transportation fund has diminished. You know, we have revenue coming in from gas tax, federal and state, along with license and registration fees. That money needs to be dedicated to transportation and go towards everything from getting the local roads plowed and maintained to, of course, taking care of the overall system. Right. What's happened is because of the gas tax being locked in at that level, people buying more fuel-efficient cars, maybe registering less vehicles, the amount of revenue coming into that fund has diminished through the years. And on top of that, to compound the problem, everything that we're doing as far as building roads, maintaining roads, the price of asphalt, gas, steel, iron, diesel fuel, everything has just continued to escalate and go way beyond where we ever thought it was going to go. And so here we have revenue diminishing and expenses going up. Are there going to be easy answers? No, of course not. But we need to come up with something that not only solves the problem for this budget, but starts to correct this problem going into the future.
But help me understand. The governor created a task force 2 years ago. You were part of that dialogue that considered the recommendations. Let's raise the price of the driver's license, which is renewed every 8 years. Let's have this annually. You would tell the Department of Transportation how many miles you drove. That nobody likes that plan. And let's revisit the gas tax, which hasn't been increased since 2006. How come those recommendations were never seriously considered in the current budget, Senator?
Well, I think part of the reason is that there was always a fear after we went through the era where people were dipping into transportation to pay for other things. And as you well know, Steve, I offered the constitutional amendment to protect that fund, and that will be on the ballot this November.
November 4.
Once that is in place, I believe there'll be a serious discussion on how we're going to maintain and pay for transportation going well out into the future. A number of years ago, I offered the idea of designating, some of our sales tax that's related to auto and auto repair parts and things like that into the transportation fund, because that's a natural connection.
Do you still believe in that? And the
Yes.
reason I ask is when I interviewed Paul Farrell last week, he came up with that same idea. So do you see that as
I see that as something that's viable.
If you're reelected, are you going to offer that next
Absolutely.
session? Okay, thank you.
Now,
Excuse me for interrupting.
Now, I will tell you that we're doing some of that already, okay? But if you look at other states throughout the country, a lot of states are using general purpose revenue to help the transportation fund. And so I think that's part of the answer to, a very complex problem.
Okay, let's move on to school funding. If you're reelected and school funding is being debated as the 2015-2017 budget, what are you going to push for, sir?
Well, I think everything is going to be somewhat dependent on the revenue coming into the state, because we certainly can't guarantee you what that's going to be. Right now, we still have a surplus, but some of the forecasts are showing that revenue is going to diminish. Now, when they look at those projections, of course, they're looking at the whole world, everything that happens in the Middle East, everything that happens every place. But I know that a lot of schools, especially rural schools, are struggling. How do we address that along with everything else in education? This last time I was very happy that we put in $150 per student per year, which I thought was really helpful to a lot of the schools. Along with that, I offered some effort during the budget process to deal with sparsity aid and to deal with transportation for districts that are pretty widespread. They didn't do exactly what I wanted, right, but we did put in $10 million dealing with schools that have a transportation cost over 150% of the average. And I think that helped a lot of schools.
Okay.
I also went ahead and offered the changes in the governor's bill to cut taxes to allow under Fund 80 the ability to go back 2 years. Because when they did it in joint finance, it really put a burden on some of the school districts that were addressing Fund 80 because they don't levy one level all the time. They go up and down compared to what they need. And so this gave them some options. So all those things are going to be important.
Part of this debate is on the future of vouchers and school choice. Do you have any voucher and school choice schools in the 29th district, sir?
I do.
You do? Okay.
I do.
So do you support the Assembly Speaker, as you know, wants to remove the 1,000 cap on outstate choice slots? Do you support that?
Well, I think it comes to a balance. Is there going to be a lot of support to expand the choice program? I'm sure there is. But there also has to be a reality look at the schools that are out there now and what they're going through. I've talked to a lot of the school administrators in my district. I know what they would like to see as far as, you know, more revenue coming in. And I think we need to start looking at the rural school districts too, in a way to try to help them to make sure that they can make ends meet and offer as good an education as anybody else in the state.
The governor's call this summer for Wisconsin to withdraw from the Common Core. Do you support that?
Well, first of all, the governor is talking about withdrawing. It is not in statute. Okay, so what does he really mean? I will tell you that a lot of school districts have invested a lot of money and time and effort into adapting these standards. I think there needs to be a discussion among all parties. They all need to be at the table, the schools, everybody, and come up with reasonable alternatives. If there's something that needs to be changed, well, let us address what needs to be changed. And I think if you can get everybody to the table, you should be able to find common ground and find the right answer.
Okay.
Right now, you know, Common Core is across the nation. Some states have something called different, but it's very similar. We need to find out what the best answer is for Wisconsin, what's the best answer for our children, best answer for our schools.
Health care funding. 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care through our Medicaid program. The American Hospital Association says we have the second lowest MA reimbursement rates. Is it time to raise those, Senator?
Well, again, Steve, you're going to have the money if you're going to do it.
Okay.
If you invest more money, of course, there's a chance of getting more federal money. The study, I think, was done by the Hospital Association. And so I don't know, I haven't seen it, I haven't read it, I don't know what factors were put into it. I don't know if they considered the cost of living in different areas along with that. I think all those things have to be looked at. I think the reality is it sounds very good because hospitals that get a lower reimbursement have to make up those costs someplace else. So they end up raising other charges to people that are paying outside of MA. Okay. And that raises the cost of health care to somebody else.
Frac sand mining must be an interest in the must be an issue in the 29th district, Senator.
Actually, probably not.
No, it isn't? Okay.
It's more to the west.
Okay.
I will tell you I did not support the first frac sand bill that was introduced.
Okay.
I'm somebody that believes in local control.
Local control.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
And it was taking too much power away from local governments, and I think that's problematic.
Okay. The bill to legalize medical marijuana will be reintroduced next session. And the states of Washington and Colorado have legalized recreational marijuana. Your position on both issues?
First of all, medical marijuana, probably not.
Okay.
But I want to tell you why. I spoke at the Wisconsin Medical Society here this spring, and there was about 50 to 70 doctors there. And so uniformly I asked across the board, How many would support legalizing medical marijuana? Not one out of 50 to 70 doctors. And I asked why. They uniformly said that we have better prescription drugs on the market right now than marijuana.
Well, and that's it. Go ahead.
And on to the next topic that you asked about, the recreational use
Yes.
of marijuana. I would be a no there also.
Okay.
I believe, and from everything I've read, people I've talked to, that this is kind of a stepping stone to stronger and stronger drugs, whether they be heroin or cocaine or whatever. We have a heroin epidemic in this state right now, probably in this nation. And we are looking for ways to deal with that problem. And you know, we did quite a few bills this year dealing with that Representative Nygren offered. And we're going to continue to look at that. I've met with a number of the groups, not only from Wausau, but from Marshfield, Marathon County, that are looking for ways that we can get a handle on this, because it is really harmful, not only to the individual, but to families and everything.
It's an old issue, but it always comes up, Senator, as you know. First offense drunken driving. Should it be a crime, sir?
I know that there's support to do that. I don't think that that's the right answer, and I'll tell you why. We went ahead and looked at putting money into like the THAD program. This treatment alternative, I think, is better because we're addressing the problem. Just locking people up is not always the total answer. If you look back over 10 years, we are making progress at drunk driving and accidents going down and down. You know, we can lock everybody up, and we've done a lot of good things. And I will tell you, about 5 years ago, we did a rewrite on drunk driving laws, DWI. I yet have to see exactly, for the money that we invested in the changes we made, how much success we have had with that. Okay? That's one. And we continue to look at things. This past year, we did a number of drunk driving bills. One was the THAD programs. Another one dealt with punishment for people that were multiple offenders, because I think that's where a lot of the problems are. We also did one with the look back. So if somebody was arrested for drunk driving, even if it was 10 years ago, the next time it is a second offense. There was an exemption there. We got rid of that. And we also had another bill that I think had merit. It passed committee, but it didn't pass on the floor. And that was to mandate a court appearance on the first offense. Okay. Drunk driving is a serious business. 80% of the people that offend once don't reoffend. Okay. Sometimes that being on the record, though, for that first time creates a lot of other problems when it comes to getting a job, employment, and everything else.
Recently, Governor Walker said if he's reelected, he will push for the drug testing of someone getting unemployment benefits and food stamps. Do you support that?
You know, I understand that. I talk to people across the state, and they would like to see some of that put in place. But I can also tell you that a number of states have done that, and it's been put on hold through the court system. So we need to figure out exactly if there is a way to do that, and that's the route we need to take.
Okay. We're sitting at a tech college campus. The governor would like to freeze tuition for the next 2 years, not only on the UW system campuses, but on tech college campuses. Do you support that?
That isn't, I understand to hold tuition down for the students is great. It's a great idea. Now, but let's look a little farther. We did it on the UW campus, but there was an issue with having that fund that they found that there was so much money in. We haven't found that at the tech colleges, okay? The tech colleges, we need to go ahead and train workers for what we need in our area. Okay. I'm working with President Wires here because there are some issues that are really important. The diesel program that we want to get started. And in the budget, I put a provision in there to allow some flexibility for colleges that are getting federal money to develop programs. I gave some flexibility in there to them. But it's the welding program, it's the diesel program. I've talked to Lori, President Wires, about doing a commercial driver's license program. We're going to have to do a lot of retraining. And I can tell you that right now what we're facing in central Wisconsin, we have many manufacturers here that have a lot of welders. A lot of those welders are not young anymore. They're going to be retiring in the next 5 years. So there's going to be a huge need for welders. We need to start getting those people trained so that we have workers to fill those gaps. I had one business call me up. said that they would like to move to central Wisconsin, but they need 100 welders. Right now, we don't have 100 welders.
Couldn't get them, huh?
Right.
Finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4th, sir?
Well, I will tell you, and you probably know, Steve, I do a lot of issues and a lot of bills. I had 56 bills signed into law last session, and that's a wide range of everything from transportation through domestic abuse, violence, the human trafficking, the handicap parking, dealing with veterans coming home, a lot of veterans issues. The first key to me being successful passing a bill is to get everybody involved, get everybody at the table. A lot of people talk about being bipartisan, especially during a campaign. I can tell you that I can work with everybody. The 56 bills that I passed went through on a bipartisan level.
Thank you.
I think that's the key to the future of everything.
Thank you. Senator Jerry Petrowski of Marathon is a Republican seeking re-election in the 29th Senate District. Senator, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.